There's a house in San Diego, California that looks like a picture from a postcard: white walls, red roof, a garden full of flowers. But behind its charming facade lies one of the darkest haunted histories in the United States. This is the Whaley House. But from the very beginning, the land seemed cursed. Before construction even began, the property was the site of public executions. One of the most infamous was that of Yankee Jim Robinson, a thief who was hanged on the very ground where the house now stands. She also heard the pitter-patter of tiny feet running up and down the stairs. One night, Thomas was awakened by the sound of screams in the courtyard outside his bedroom window. She told them that she had been hearing a voice calling her name from the garden, and she felt compelled to follow it. These sounds were coming from the courtyard where Violet had died. She assumed it was her husband, but when she called out to him, he didn't respond. She got out of bed to investigate and noticed that the door at the end of the hall was slightly ajar. Visitors come from all over the world to see the beautifully preserved Victorian mansion and learn about its haunted history. The spirits of those who lived and died here are still present, and they will never truly rest in peace. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing is certain: the Whaley House is a place unlike any other. If you ever visit, you won't forget what you feel. They also come with cameras in hand, hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal activity that has been reported here for generations. Some say they've captured images of ghosts in their photos, while others say they've seen apparitions standing in the windows or heard disembodied voices echoing through the halls. As she approached it, the air grew colder and she felt a strong sense of dread. Suddenly, the door swung open on its own and she gasped in surprise. And if you haven't, let us know if you'd like to live in a haunted house. The room beyond was pitch black, but she could have sworn she saw a shadowy figure standing in the corner. Before she could react, the door slammed shut and the room was plunged into darkness. She called for her husband, but he was fast asleep and couldn't hear her. She spent the rest of the night sitting in her bed, too terrified to go to sleep. And she never forgot the horrifying feeling of dread that had washed over her when she first opened that door. She tried to ignore them, but they grew louder and more frequent until she could stand it no longer. And Thomas called for help, and soon a team of paranormal investigators arrived at their home. They used scientific instruments to measure the temperature and electromagnetic fields in the courtyard, hoping to find an explanation for the strange noises. But what they discovered only added to the mystery. The temperature plummeted dramatically in the center of the courtyard, and the electromagnetic field readings were off the charts. Though the team couldn't explain what they were witnessing, Anna knew that it was the ghost of her daughter haunting their home. She prayed that Violet would find peace, but instead, her spirit only grew stronger. Her parents didn't believe her story about hearing a voice. They thought she was going through a rebellious phase common among teenagers and hoped that it would pass. One woman who lived there later described it as though the spirits were playing a game of hide and seek with her. She would often hear footsteps above her head and feel cold spots throughout the house. She even saw the ghost of Violet on occasion, usually when she was cleaning the house, and thought she was alone. However, some say these ghostly encounters were actually quite pleasant. The woman often felt a sense of comfort and connection with the spirits of the house and believed that they were simply trying to communicate with her. But what they didn't know was that Violet was desperate to escape the confines of her family home. After her engagement to a local man named Harry Bird broke off, she threw herself into her work helping her mother with the household chores. It seems that this is where her mental state really began to deteriorate. She was a devout Christian and deeply afraid of hell. She became convinced that God had abandoned her and was angry with her for unknown reasons. In addition to the booming voice from the garden, she also experienced terrifying dreams in which she was being pulled toward an open grave. She felt trapped inside the house and believed that the only way to escape her sins was to take her own life. So on July 25, 1885, she climbed onto the balcony ledge with the intention of jumping. Her parents heard her scream and rushed to her aid. But by the time they reached her, it was too late. She fell and was killed instantly. Her distraught parents prayed over her body, begging God for forgiveness and promising to do anything to bring their daughter back to life. But Violet was gone forever. He got up to investigate, but everything was silent. When he went back to bed, however, the commotion started again and he heard a blood-curdling scream that seemed to come from his daughter Violet. Terrified, he got up again and went to check on her. To his horror, he found her standing on the balcony ledge ready to jump. Startled by her father's sudden appearance, Violet climbed back over the railing and ran to her room. Thomas couldn't understand what had caused his daughter to attempt to take her own life. All he knew was that he had to find her before she did something irreversible. Though no one was there, these sounds were constant, and nothing she could do would make them stop. Soon, people began to notice that when they visited the Whaleys, they, too, saw and heard strange things. Anna's brother and sister-in-law were visiting one day when they witnessed a small boy in 1840s clothing walking down the hallway. As they watched, the apparition turned the corner and vanished from sight. They searched the house for an explanation, but the boy was nowhere to be found. They told Anna what they had seen and she knew immediately that it was her little Walter, forever trapped between the worlds of the living and the dead. Locals say that the spirit of Yankee Jim never left. And today, more than 150 years later, visitors report seeing or hearing him wandering through the halls. Built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, the house was meant to be a dream home for him and his family. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our spine-tingling stories. He and his wife Anna moved into the house with their 6 children in 1859 and enjoyed living there for several years. It was here that their youngest son, Walter, died. The exact circumstances surrounding Walter's death are not known, but it is believed that he passed away from a disease commonly found in young children at the time. Heartbroken by the loss of their son, the Whaleys buried him in the front yard of their home under the shade of a large pepper tree. They hoped that this would bring their little boy comfort in death, but tragically, Walter's body was soon disturbed. The spot where they had laid him to rest became the new gallows for the town. Many condemned men were hanged right next to where Walter was buried, and his remains were dug up and tossed into a nearby river. While his body may have been lost, his spirit remained in the house, causing all kinds of chaos. Welcome back to the series, where we bring you the most mysterious and haunted places from around the world. Thomas Whaley wasn't deterred by the grim history of the land he had purchased. Anna began to hear the sound of children's laughter coming from the hallway, even though their Walter was the only child at home and he was too sick to play. As if the ghost of a child wasn't enough to deal with, the Whaleys had more haunting experiences. He and Anna confronted Violet and asked her why she would put herself in such danger. In the days following her funeral, Anna began to hear chains dragging, metal moans, and disembodied voices. One night, Anna was awakened by the sound of someone clearing their throat in the room next to hers. As the years passed, more and more people began to experience paranormal activity in the Whaley House. Today, the Whaley House is open to the public as a museum. The Whaley House is a reminder that the past is never really gone. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you ever experienced paranormal activity in your own home? Share your story in the comments below.